Ms. Fowler, the line.
Okay, so it's Thursday, May 11th, 2023, and this is the Finance and Facilities Committee meeting of the Council Rock School District. Please state your name and your position to my right.
Oh, thank you, Mary, and the Key School Board.
Ed Tate School Board.
Rich Dyer, the president of the Shelter.
Andy Sanko, Superintendent.
Anthony Rapp, Director of Business Administration.
Jessica Binda, Supervisor of Facilities.
Matt Federickson, IT Director.
Ed Salomon, school board.
Michael Roosevelt, School Board.
Bob Dickey, School Board.
And this is Youtapali School Board. I believe we have Mr. Hidalgo and Mr. Nomos on the phone, is that correct?
Yes, Joe Hidalgo, School Boards.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Nomos? Maybe he hasn't called you. Maybe. Okay, good. All right, so we have several items on the agenda. I don't have it in front of me, but we can start with the finance portion of it. And we can proceed with the facilities afterwards. Is that okay, Tony?
Yes.
Start with finance?
Yes, that was fine. So the agenda for tonight is the insurance renewal update, which Rich will talk about. The approving some various items, and then we're talking about the approval of the proposed final general fund budget for 23-24. So first off, we'll start with Rich from Seltzer Company is going to talk to us about our insurance, and we did go out to market for our insurance policies this year, and he's going to go over the results of the plan. I guess that slide didn't show up as well as I thought it would.
Yeah, it's a little hard to read, but just to, we kind of knew, we meet in a pre-renewal meeting about 2 months ago with Tony, and at that time we knew from CM Region, who was endorsed by PSBA, who's handled their program for a long time, they were going to increase the property values by 15% based on appraisal that's performed. They do an appraisal every October, November. So with that, we talked to Tony, said, hey, let's go out and aggressively market it. So we did go out to market, and with that, there's some Liberty Mutual and Utica and Right Specialty are players in that market, and they came back and could not compete with the CM Region. Now, there's some things that CM Region did. I'm not sure if you can see it, but with the property, the renewal came in with a 15% increase in values, obviously due to inflation, and also a 4.5% increase in the rate. So with that, it was a significant increase. And the premium, if you look, the premium was $298,000. The ending premium was $369,000. If you look, I know you can't see it, but we kind of adjust the expiring rates for the increased values. So if we took that premium last year and increased the values, the actual renewal premium would have been $353,000, and they finished up at $369,000. So on the positive side, so that was a pretty significant increase. On the positive side, nearly most of the other policies either stayed flat or were reduced to offset that. And the most significant reduction was on the workers' comp. The workers' comp was $487,000 increase in payroll from $113 million to $118 million, and that bumped up the adjusted expiring to 5/12, so you would have paid $512,000. They actually came in at $455,000. So from expiring, they lowered $32,000 to offset the $65,000 increase in the property. Other areas of increase, or actually the business auto would have increased by $6,000. They reduced their premium by $4,000 from what it would have been, and also on the school leaders liability, they reduced that premium by $6,000, and on the pollution, we had a $2,000 reduction. So overall, the expiring premium was $1,097,000. The actual renewal premium is $1,132,000. So it is up $35,000 overall, which is about 2.5%, which I think is a very good result. Knowing going in that the property is going to increase, the property premium is going to increase dramatically. So with that, there's also, you want to go through the options. There's an option being offered by CM Region. If you increase your deductible from $25,000 to $50,000, so it's a $25,000 increase in deductible, will result in a $31,000 premium savings. So the way you analyze that, that's a good thing. So if you have a claim, you're still $6,000 ahead. And then the question is, what have our claims been? So historically, what have the claims been? So over the last 6 years, there was one claim that exceeded the current $25,000 deductible, and that claim was $240,000. That was a pipe that leaked. So over the last 6 years, there was one claim that would be impacted. So what you try to do is look at your history. Hopefully, your history will predict your future. So knowing that, it does seem to make sense to go to the $50,000 deductible. So that's a $25,000 increase. The other option is to go to $100,000 deductible, but it's diminishing returns because to go the additional $50,000 deductible is only a $32,000 reduction in premium. So in talking through with Tony, it makes sense if you want to say the $31,000 increase the deductible from $25,000 to $50,000. And then the other option that we discussed was increasing the fraudulent impersonation coverage. And built into the CM Region program, there's a $100,000 limit. They're offering varying degrees, and to bump that $100,000 up to $1 million, the additional premium is only $894. So, in the increase of the bad actors out there trying to, penetrate whatever protections and controls you have in place, that seems like a worthy investment to increase that limit from $100,000 to $1 million for $894. And fraudulent impersonation is somebody who might try to trick an employee into transferring money, maybe somewhere that those funds shouldn't go. So that's what that protection is for. So overall, it was a good result, and these are on the table, and I think we are recommending that you do go forward with it.
And I think if we reduce the premium by that $31,000, we're going to be really close to where we were last year, or actually this year with our premiums. Even though we had a 4.5% increase in rates, and we had a 15% increase in the value of our property. So I think we're coming out pretty far ahead.
How many claims do we process through this policy, and/or when was the last time we processed a claim through this policy?
So a majority of your claims are on the workers' comp, and your loss ratio on the workers' comp is about 40 to 45%. So bulk your losses, and it's, I think on average over the last 5 years, is $238,000 worth of claims on average over the last 5 years. The reason, and the market has been very tight and hard over the last 3 to 4 years, and your premiums have stayed relatively stable because you're not submitting a lot of claims on the property, on the audit, on the general liability. So it's in turn paying dividends, because it's kind of rare for me to go out and not be increasing or presenting increases of 10%. So I think this is a very good result as a result of, you know, a lot of the controls in place, human resources working with the workers' comp claims, and all the protections. The safety committee is working well, and you know, I know they do analyze the risk exposures, go through the incidents, and I think are doing a nice job controlling, you know, the claims that might be coming. And just, you know, we do have Gerald Coffey and Ken try to work with the safety committee as a resource to work with CM Region they tour facilities and they participate in the meetings, whether it be claims review, to try to keep the claims down.
Any other questions?
Mr. Hidalgo.
Oh. Mr. Hidalgo, we have a question? No?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Just want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes.
Thank you for the presentation. I have a quick question. When you talk about property values going up 15%, what properties are we talking about that went up due to inflation 15%? Because you said inflation.
Yeah, that's a good question. So CM Region and PSBA program increased all schools across Pennsylvania by 14.6% was the increase due to inflation. Most schools are constructed, you know, with like kind materials. So, you know, and I asked the same question, where do you come up with the 15% this year? So basically, there's a couple indexes that we use. One is through Factory Mutual. Marshall and Swift is another one that they use, another index. And, you know, those indexes last year, they were between 13.5% and 19% for Marshall and Swift, and 10% and 13% this year. You know, Factory Mutual or ENR, Engineering News and Reporting, was up about 14% also. And this is averages, so it depends on the construction of the building also, but you know, your buildings are well constructed and fairly recently upgraded or new. So so that's where they come up with those that increase.
Thank you, Rich. So basically, we're talking more about replacement costs than actual property values.
Yes, it's the replacement cost of the buildings which was increased, not the contents.
Okay, because what I wanted to say, you can't correlate these increases with like someone saying that it's not really tied to property values in the community of houses and stuff like that. It's just basic insurance property values to replace, right? The inflation on the materials to replace.
Correct. It's not tied to market value, it's strictly replacement cost.
Okay.
And obviously,
That's what I wanted to be clear.
Yep. The cost of materials goes up, labor shortages, supply chain, it all kind of adds up.
Okay, and then the other thing, I mean, I appreciate trying to save $30,000, $36,000 by increasing the deductible, but as you say, you know, past performance, if we have low claim deductible, but our buildings, you know, our buildings aren't new, so maybe that does count what I'm thinking, but if you have an aging building, which we don't really have much anymore, chances are if you haven't, you have two basements, one that flood and one that will flood, you know? So in insurance, that's what they say, or real estate. So you're saying that because we haven't had claims in the past, you're comfortable that we won't maybe just get hit through the probability, you know, circle?
No, I would.
That it might be our turn.
Yeah. I would make the decision knowing that you may get hit, but hopefully it's not more than a couple times over the next 5 years. And, you know.
5 years, okay, yeah. How long is this? It's renewed annually or what?
Yes.
So if we get two claims in a year, then we're fine. So I'll leave it to everybody else to think. We'll talk about that. But thank you for answering the question. Back to you guys.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Great. So we can proceed to the next item?
Yes, I'll say this way. So, you know, I say the business office is recommending that we accept the policy policies as they are with the $50,000 increase in deductible and the additional $900,000 of fraudulent impersonation coverage. So, and other than that, thank you
Okay.
for coming out.
Thank you, thank everyone for your time, appreciate it.
So the first item for the business office end is we've had a request for services for Indian Valley appraisers to appraise some 5 properties at Village of Newtown as part of an assessment appeal. I think it's, the rates vary. I think it could be about $20,000, but the amount that we would save on taxes, I mean, that we would make on taxes should we prevail would be more than that over the years. So we're asking you to approve the request, the service fees that we receive, and that's in board docs for your review.
So I don't know if I mentioned that before, but the Village of Newtown is expanding. I mean, it's now, they have so many great new businesses. And I know from people who rent there that the rents are really high, and some of them are considering moving out. So at least the least they can do is pay their taxes. So I think it makes sense to have the assessment to make sure that we get the proper tax.
Yeah, and I think they were assessed much less because they were not open. Those buildings were not open. Now that they're finding renters,
Or is that the Green Pack?
That's what it's the one also behind it where McCaffrey's is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tony, we already have an outstanding appeal going on here.
yeah, no, that's I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but we do have another appeal going on that I had just.
Indian something or other.
Yes, Indian.
Indian Village.
Just received their first invoice on that today.
You said this was for 5 properties.
And yeah, that's the one that we have open is on homes. This is on stores.
Yeah. I'll speak to that offer. Actually, Mr. Taylor will only let that.
Yeah. Yeah, this is.
I'm sorry, it's Brandywine Boulevard.
No, I know that one, but I thought we.
This,
Okay, do you recall an existing where we had previous appraisal litigation of some type of the villages in Newtown?
yeah. This is a while ago, Rob Cox was working on this. This is a while ago.
Well, we've been
I don't think it's been settled, correct?
getting regular reports. They've appealed.
Right. But it's, so my question is, what is that?
I think it's the same. I think we got the solicitor's report. That was included there. It's probably the same one. Because this has been going, according to that report, if I remember correctly, that's been going on for a while.
Yeah.
I think there's movement on this.
So what's the additional funds for, is what I'm asking?
To appraise the buildings now.
Now,
With
as a result of the
occupancy.
previous litigations? Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, because they've contested it in court.
Right, I don't want to say too much.
So we had to,
Yeah.
So this is the, getting it to the end?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Makes sense.
Next is this Bucks County Tax Collector Committee delegate. Right now, our official delegate is Bob Reinhardt. Just would like to replace him with me, and Cheryl will remain as the alternate for the Bucks County Tax Collection Committee. Asking you to approve that. So for the elementary assignment bid and secondary student handbooks, every year we've been sending these out to bid. the total cost for over 3 years is $75,000. It's been $75,000. This year, we decided for the secondary schools to not give them printed handbooks, and instead, since they've all got Chromebooks, to put them on Chromebooks or give them access to these via Chromebook rather than a printed version. But we're still going to have them available to make the ones for the elementary schools. So we're asking you to approve a 3-year contract total of $29,524.50 and reject the secondary student handbooks portion of the bid for the other $50,000 of the 3 years.
So these are the assignment books that the elementary school kids use?
Yeah.
And what grade levels receive those books?
1 through 6.
Everyone?
Yeah.
Okay,
At least
thank
that's
you.
what I think. But I'm pretty sure.
If I may, this is a non-financial question, excuse me, but I am curious. At the secondary level, they won't be getting paper handbooks, but they still will be required to submit a parental signature of some sort. Isn't that?
So it's currently at the secondary level, we have a signature page in there saying that both the families, the parents, guardians have reviewed the policies and the handbook with students. We know it's not going to be that same format. We're not sure how we're going to build that in to the electronic version, but we will get acknowledgement from the parents that they did review and receive outside of the hard copy like we get currently.
Good, that's what I was looking at. Thank you.
So the younger students bring their paper printed handbook home to their parents and get a signature from that.
So at the elementary level, oftentimes, the students will write their homework in there. The teacher goes around the classroom, initials it. So the parent initials it at home. It's more of a daily use thing at the elementary school than at the secondary school.
I think it's the verbiage of what you're saying there. So the student, it's more of the student assignment book.
Yeah, it's like a
It's
homework
a
book.
student calendar book, a
Calendar book.
student homework book.
Okay,
PTOs used to pay for this,
that's
Oh,
interesting.
yeah?
up until about 5 years
5 or
ago.
6.
1,300 hours a year. Give or take.
So this is just to do the printout of these books for the elementary and the middle school level, and we're not going to do the physical copy for 9 to 12. And that uses the savings.
7.
7 to 12, perfect. Right, so that's the savings. So this roughly 29K is for K to 6.
One.
1 to 6.
And the last item on this page is the 2024 senior class trips. They're both north and south are going to Disney. We've reviewed the contracts, and I believe they're in board docs. They're relatively the same. They're maybe some price differences due to what food is afforded, but the relative contracts are the same. So we're asking you to approve both of those contracts for next year.
And you recommend that we approve them?
Parents pay for it, we're just
Yeah.
fronting the money.
And you said they have to be similar. The two schools cannot be totally different quality of accommodations.
Yes, we have to make sure they're the same, and they are. So. And then in 21-22, a bid went out for computer work, for some computer products, and one of the items contained in the bid was a Nutanix product. Nutanix, I'm sorry. Matt can explain better what that is if you
Our infrastructure for the servers and memory storage. It's a hyper-converged solution. What we've done is we need to expand the storage a little bit because we're absorbing some of the other equipment we're getting rid of by moving it to a virtualized platform. Makes our lives much easier, gives us longevity, a lot more flexibility. So we needed to add some additional storage to the unit. I reached out to the vendor and I said, hey, is there any chance you'd honor the pricing from 2021? And they said, sure. So it's going to save us around $12,000, but we need to actually, Tony researched it, they need you to approve using the bid price since it's started.
Good. Looked like a weight loss contract.
Genetics.
I've been saying Nutanix, so I've been saying it wrong. This is another thing I need to learn. So then the next item on the agenda is the, hopefully, starting to wind down the discussion on the budget. Next week, we're going to ask you to approve the final proposed budget. Please keep in mind that that budget it's not final. All you're doing is, by approving it, is letting us advertise a budget for 30 days so that we have time to get the final budget approved in June. So the first part I want to talk about in this is we were asked to look into a rebate program for some senior citizens and some people who are on a fixed income. So what we did is we looked at some other school districts and the programs that they have established, and we found that every one of them has a program based upon the PA real estate tax rebate program, the state program. So the state program is basically that if at different income levels, up to 8,000, you would get $650 back. Up to from 8,000 to 15, you would get $500 back. And this is your total household income that I'm talking about. So if your total household income is less than 8,000, you would get $650 back. If your total household income was between 8,000 and 15,000, you would get $500 back. If it was between 15,000 and 18,000, you would get $300 back. And over 18,000 up to 35,000, you get $250 back. Additionally, if I believe it's 15% of your total income goes towards property taxes, you would get an additional half of what you would receive, up to 30,000. So if you know, as an example, if your income is 20,000 and you're paying 5,000 in real estate taxes, you would get this additional state rebate because more than 15% of your income is going towards real estate taxes. So this program is for taxpayers over age 65 with $35,000 or less in income, or disabled adults. And so what we would be doing if we considered this is we would be basing it upon a percentage of the rebate received from the state, or the total real estate taxes paid in the period minus the rebate they received from the state, whichever is smaller, because we wouldn't want to give rebates that are more than what they paid in taxes. And so we don't want the rebate to exceed that. So the districts that I've looked at, their percentages range from 25 to 75%. So if you got a $650, say we went with a 50% rate, and they got the $650, we would pay back $325 in real estate tax relief. And you say, like I said, rate there's a lot of them from 25% to 75%. The rebate will decrease, of course, as your income nears 35,000, and this is very important. We are currently consulting with the solicitor on the legality of this program. We want to make sure that it is something that we can do before we would implement it. And just one, this is not something that we know right now that we can do, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because we were asked about it. So be very clear that and you know, I would definitely defer to the solicitor's opinion on this because it's.
So if I could just echo what Tony said, we heard Mr. Hidalgo ask about this and other programs that may be out there. We have worked closely with our solicitor on this. This is not a recommendation. This is up there to show you a model based on other districts that we have benchmarked over the last week since our last meeting. We're not recommending this. We don't even know if we can do it. We have to continue our discussion with our solicitor to see, A, is this, can we do it? And B, are there other programs out there like this that we could put in front of you for you to consider? So again, at this point, there is no recommendation. We're just modeling for you what we have seen being done in other districts. And once again, to echo what Tony said, we really need direction from our solicitor on this.
Are the other districts in Bucks County?
Some, yes.
Yes. So this next.
I'll talk if I can.
Can we finish that part, Joe?
Okay.
Unless if it's
Sure.
just, because he's going to explain more about it, but if you want, if it's urgent and it's about what he just talked about, you can, of course. Want to finish that?
Yeah, just to say that I was surprised that this showed up in the slides. I'm on vacation with my family, and I saw this pop up. I'm like, I think I asked to talk to the solicitor about the legalities of doing things like this. I wasn't aware of the $35,000 presentation. I mean, that this was available to the state. And this is probably very legal for sure. But I was wondering if there's anything else over and above this type of option. I appreciate that you did it and you're presenting it, but obviously you're not presenting a recommendation. You're educating us on how this works, and I do appreciate that 100%. But just when I saw this in the slides and I hadn't heard anything about it, oh my God. But what I could say is, $35,000, it depends what number it is on the tax return, or what line number I'm saying. But, not a lot of people in our district are going to hit that number. They're going to be squeezed out of $35,000 in our demographics. So I appreciate it, and I'm glad we're talking about this. And I look forward to seeing what the solicitor has to say and your continued work on this. I was surprised. I made sure I got on the call for this. Thank you.
It's actually 573 people, right? On that.
So this next slide is the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first 6 columns are directly from the state website, and it shows the people who took advantage of the program in Council Rock School District in the 1920 year. So these are actual numbers, actual amounts that were rebated to taxpayers. And you can see the first column is the income ranges. The second column is the number of taxpayers who took advantage of this program. And the third column is the amount that they received for the primary program. The next column is the number of taxpayers who qualified for the secondary portion of the program and the amount that they received, and then the total amount is the total amount that they received from the state in 1920 for the program. If we projected it so I put together this continuation of it based upon a 100% participation of those. One thing I should make clear, in order to qualify for the Council Rock rebate, you would need to have already qualified and received the state rebate. So one of the things that we would require is a copy of your form requesting the rebate that you sent to the state, and then proof that you received the payment, either a copy of the check or the bank statement if you had a direct deposit showing that it was direct deposit. So if we assume that 100% of those who got the state rebate participate in this program, and we use a 50% rebate, which I picked this because it was in the middle, on $1920, it would cost for homeowners, it would cost the school district $129,901. There is a portion for renters. It's a little less complicated, and it's based again on income and rent that they paid, and how much money they can get back based on that. And there was 101 renters in those income ranges, and it only goes up to $15,000. and it costs $55,000 to the state, and it would cost us at 50% rate $27,531. Now, and that's in $1920, $157,431. What it would have cost the district at 50%. So what I did then is I rolled it forward using the increase in assessments and the increase in the millage rates to calculate where we would be if we were to implement this program in July of 23. So if we used a rate of 25%, with those projections, it would require a budget of $85,000. If we used a rate of 50%, it would require a budget of $170,000, and a rate of 75% would require a budget of $255,000. Also, the program would need to be renewed yearly, and you would be able to change the rate each year if you wanted to increase or decrease it. So that's the waiting. This is the only program that I've seen being utilized by other school districts. I'm not saying that this is the only one, but this is the only one that I've seen. But we're waiting for working with the solicitor and trying to make sure that we cover all our bridges on this issue, cross all our bridges.
Mr. Tate?
Yeah, this is great work. You answered questions that I was anticipating asking about how many people, potential costs. So this is terrific. Thank you.
Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And any opportunity that we can help to reduce the burden of increased costs, increases, or inflation to our 65-plus community is great. So you're recommending these, what we're looking at right here, are line items so that we would be able to fund the monies back to the qualifying participants.
Yes, if it's legal.
If it's legal, right.
Yeah.
We'll jump piggyback on if it's legal, the time frame. Is there going to be enough time to figure out whether or not it's legal for this year's budget, the one we have to vote on in June? Or did we already kind of miss the boat on it?
No, I mean, we're hoping that we have an answer in time for that. And just so we're clear, so it would be based on, because we have to piggyback off what the state does, it would be based on what the state, it'd be based on calendar year 2022 for rebates that were requested in 2023, and then starting in 2023, in July, we would start accepting applications for the rebate.
Yep.
And I just want to keep in mind that this is also, we will increase some work in the business office. I'm just, making that clear. It's not.
And Mr. Hidalgo has a question?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Polly. Real quick, off the top of your head, Tony, do you know what roughly the surpluses were the last 2 years?
The surpluses regarding?
Our budget for 2021, 22, and maybe
our surpluses are 21 and 22 was, I think it was about 10 million in 21 and 9 million in 22.
Okay, so I think if we did that kind of positive surplus, that if we're talking giving back to seniors for 1 year to give them 75%, $255,000 for the ones at the lowest under $35,000, I'm okay with that. And I think also that we've done this before, 2019, 2018, if I'm not mistaken from the presentation. I was new on the board at that point, but is that what you were saying? We've already done this?
No, it hasn't been done here.
Oh, so you were saying these numbers in 2019, the presentation 2019-20, what
Yeah,
what was
yes.
that?
So that was-
The one you took care of, I'm sorry, that was the state.
Yeah, so that's the latest information that I have from the state. So that's,
We're already doing the state, and we can supplement that. if we
Yeah.
want to. I'm sorry to interrupt you, I got it. Yeah, I think if we have a $19 million surplus, regardless of these sticking over capital reserves, maybe those people, we could help them, because that's the goal. That's just my 2 cents. Thank you. And again, hopefully there's more we can do, but this is a start, so I appreciate it.
But we're not going back in time. I mean, we're talking about this year's budget, and we don't know if we're going to have any surplus and how much.
Oh, I know it says proposed on this, it says proposed on this level.
Joe, I think what Yoda was trying to say is that 18 or 19 million dollar surplus that you're referring to is from the budgets of the last 2 years. There's not necessarily a 8 to 10 million dollar surplus in this year's budget. We don't know what that answer is. Correct me if I'm wrong, Yoda, that's what you're just trying to say. Like, we're basing it on this year, not what happened 2 years ago. I mean, what happened in the past.
And that was,
It's
these
passed.
are usually years because of COVID and people working from home, so then we had like much more disposable, no, I mean.
Tax revenue came in.
Tax revenue came in and much higher
Sure.
than expected, right?
Yeah, but also, Dr.
Well,
Fogel.
if I can respond under my.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in and help out also that I believe our last meeting, Dr. Fogel suggested that typically, as a result of conservative budgeting that we do, because we don't want to be on the other side of this, we end up with surplus after the budgets are done.
Oh, yeah, it's been the case every year, a very modest but expected surplus at the end of the year. And that has gone to the capital reserve.
Right.
Right, and I think that's very proper to do that, budget conservatively. My concern with this year is that we don't know if this is going to happen because we did not have a business manager here that was as diligent as the previous business managers have been. So this year, for me, I don't have no idea if we're going to have any surplus and how much this is going to be. I'm hoping for it, but.
Okay. Well, let me respond if I could, since we're having a discussion here. The point I'm saying is, if you have surpluses in certain years in any organization, then other years you're going to have deficits. But what you, I think, or what we're suggesting is that the school district has 2 very strong years of surplus, and we're just to take that money and go put it in capital reserve or somewhere else. And all of a sudden, we were at 40 million of fund balance and we're not $19 million. When we transfer that $20 million out of fund balance, and we may end up the next year with a deficit, you literally are tying your hands, and guess what? The only way we're going to come out of this is with the tax increase. So, because we go surplus is a surplus. That was last year. We might not have that surplus. I don't see it that way. I see it in multiple years. You have money in the past where it was to the good, you've got to make that, you got to balance that out. Again, as I always say, you're going to come at it from different angles. But I almost feel like now, seeing that we're talking about, I think, from what, I mean, I'm going to jump for a second back to what Tony said last week, which was, I wanted to know, where do you think we're going to land with 2 months left in the fiscal year, even with these things that come in August, these expenses, you can rough estimate, and it looks like we're going to be somewhere around level, if not a little bit to the good, is my guesstimate. We're all guessing at this point. I do know we have a big budgetary strain coming into this next year. I just want to make sure that we don't forget the surpluses that we've had in the past, or do we just bank them, put them away, and put them towards something else and not say, hey, that's not part of cash flow management anymore. So that's, I understand what you're saying, but I don't see it the same way that we don't know what we're coming in this year. honest thing is we've had some good years, try to help out the people that we've been trying, that we all say we want to help out. So that's why I put it in perspective, that we've had some good years. Yes, we're going to have to increase taxes to keep up with costs. But don't forget the $20 million we had when people were staying home, not paying the Philadelphia tax and paying us. And there are going to be rainy days. And we're at $19 million fund balance. That kind of concerns me. I appreciate it. And all I was saying, I'm not saying if it's legal, we can do it, but I'm glad we're getting this conversation. I'm all full steam ahead to help people who need it the most vulnerable. So thank you again for the talk.
Any other discussion?
I would like to talk about that transfer. The budgeting for the use of fund balance is okay when you have a conservative budget, because then you expect that you'll do better than your budget to cover that use of fund balance. And that's kind of a budgeting rule, or an expectation of a conservative budget. As expenses, expenses increase every year, and there's a multiplicative effect to that. So every time an expense increases by 2%, that's more for next year's 2% or 4% or whatever it's going to increase by. So using things like fund balance, excess fund balance like we had, and moving that to capital reserve to pay for projects that are going to be needed down the road is important, and not only going to be needed, but have been delayed for several years and didn't get done. So that's the main reason why we moved money from the general fund to the capital reserve fund. There's a lot of projects that need to get done that we're going to be able to do that without additional cost to the taxpayer, because we're not going to go above where we've been with debt. And not only that, we're actually going to start getting lower than where we've been with debt. So that's an actual savings to the taxpayer as our debt payments decrease every year. That's money that we can move out of transfer to debt service and into programs. Using fund balance to cover expenses beyond a conservative budget is just going to cause problems in the future, because you're funding expenses with fund balance that you don't have next year. So if you're budgeting with the expectation that your fund balance is going to decrease, every year that you budget like that, your fund balance is going to go down. And I'm saying this if you're not doing a conservative budget. So if you're not doing a conservative budget and you're budgeting use of fund balance, you're going to spend that fund balance. And you can only do that for so long before you start running out of fund balance. So I understand that it's not the greatest look when the year ends and we've raised taxes, but we end up with a surplus at the end of the year. I know that that's not the best look, but it really is the most sound financial way of doing things for the children of the district. I mean, that's really what is the most important thing, is in order to support them with programs that they need, the buildings that they need. All those things need to get paid for, and the more that we do this, the better that we budget this realistically and conservatively, the better that we're going to come out in the future. And yes, there are things that are going on where I don't know that we've been able to budget as well as I would have liked to this year. I don't know that I know that I don't have the detail that I wanted, but I'm working on changing that so that we all have more detail next year, so that everyone on the cabinet and everyone that works for the cabinet can look at the budget and say, okay, this is not efficient, this is not a good use of funds, and know what we can cut, instead of having items in the budget that are just $50,000 in this account. Well, what's it for? Well, the things that we usually buy. So that's the thing that we're trying to get away from in order to improve that. And that's not the fault of anyone in this administration currently. But we are trying to improve that system so that we can budget, so that everyone can do their jobs better when it comes to this budget. So that's, sorry for my.
No,
Well,
that's a great explanation.
Explanation, yeah.
Can you talk about when Bob was here and we talked about moving money from one fund to the other? And we're at 19.5 million in our fund balance.
So moving money from.
We moved 22.
We moved 22, and we were at 19.5, and we're at 19.5 at the end of 22. And, we do this if we were, the plan is that the budget was fixed conservatively enough that we would end up with a surplus at the end of this year and get us closer. Like 21 is the better number, I think, for where we want to be. But we can stay where we need to be on the side.
Why was it recommended to move the $22.5 million?
Oh, because we're sitting on money that we don't want to use that money for balancing, but we don't want to use that money to spend it on the budget because in the general fund, because we're not taking care of the costs as they come in. And eventually, if we use that to balance the budget, we'd run out of that money and we'd be back in the hole again. And then we don't have that money to spend on other items. We also have rules. The PD, we're not supposed to have more than 8% of next year's expenditures in fund balance, in unassigned fund balance. So we would either have to assign it or move it out. So we can't just keep money in the general fund in the hopes that we'll need it. If we get more than 8% in there, that we would be in trouble with the PD for that. So we can't just leave money sitting in the general fund. And to get where we were, to make sure that we had enough in our debt service fund. We also had enough in our debt service fund, and we also moved enough over to capital reserve so that we could fund the future projects. So, so we have that 5%. Basically, we have a range of unassigned fund balance that we're required to have. If you look at the Council Rock rules and you look at the state rules, the Council Rock rules is no less than 5%. The state rules is no more than 8%. So we have to stay within that 5 to 8% range also. So,
one question, if I may. How much of the 22 million was dedicated to the Richboro Elementary School project to lower the amount that we need to borrow for that project?
So I'm not talking about those larger projects. We are still funding them with that, but I'm talking about all the summer projects that we're getting done now that have been languishing for years. Concrete areas that are falling apart and need to be fixed. Those
The capital improvement and the
Lighting and sound, basketball courts,
educational.
Playgrounds,
Was
tennis
it 8
courts.
million for educational initiatives?
Yes, there's 8 million for educational initiatives, but we want to be careful with that as well because we need to spend that on new educational initiatives that improve the education of our students.
Not on salaries, because that's.
Well, we can spend it on salaries on a pilot program. If we were to try to pilot program and want to spend it on a year or two salary to try that, but so we're using it this year to purchase new whiteboards to improve the students' experience so that they have better equipment and the teachers have better equipment to instruct the students. So that's where we're falling in there. So, but that's why we're doing that.
Good. Continue. Next one.
Give me a second. So the proposed 23-24 final budget highlights. The numbers that I'm going to show you are based on a 2.5% tax increase. So we did not do the $1 million direct transfer of healthcare fund balance. We found that, in consulting with the solicitor, that the requirements would have been probably too much than we would have wanted. We would have had to get some agreements done. And plus, I don't like the ethics of it, to be honest with you. You know, what that's for, using that money to balance the budget, where we got that money from. So we're not going to do that. But I did contact Keystone and had them give us a projection for the remainder of this year's earned income taxes and next year's earned income taxes. And with that, with the increase, trying to remain conservative, and I am remaining conservative as Bob ever was with this, we are looking, I decided to increase that revenue item by $1 million. So I'm substituting one for the other to do that. We also did find that there was an additional, we increased the state bond reimbursement by $700,000. And what happened is, so when Cheryl took over and then I came in, we found that we were not getting all the bond reimbursements that we were supposed to be getting, and that there was paperwork that wasn't filed that we needed to file. So we filed that paperwork and found that we actually should have gotten, and we are getting another $700,000 this year in bond reimbursement.
Tony, is that just for last year, or has that been for?
That's for the payments that we needed this year, so 23, yeah. And we calculated, it was budgeted at $700,000, we calculated based on that what we should get next year, and it's about $1.4 million, so we changed that to $1.4 million. So that was a nice find. I will tell you also that there are some other bond reimbursements from years past that we don't know if we should have gotten, that we didn't get. So we're working on that right now. I don't know how much that might be, but we're working with the state to make sure that we get that, because if you don't get it by the end of this year, anything prior is dead. So we need to make sure we get that done before the end of this year. And the state cannot tell me how much it would be, but I want to make sure that we do that. And I have no other information on it other than we're trying to get all the paperwork filed into them by the end of the year, by the end of the school year.
Well, thank you for that. Tell Cheryl we said thank you.
Yeah, this is all Cheryl. Cheryl's great.
Yeah.
I can't say enough about how wonderful it is to have Cheryl there. And then we talked last week about the administration was recommending position changes. Those are added into this budget. So so we're looking at revenue of $266 million, expenditures of almost $268 million. So the overall shortfall with those parameters is $1,554,000. We have agreed to use we are recommending the use of the Education Initiative Fund balance for the whiteboards of $336,000, which leaves us with an unassigned use of fund balance of $1.2 million.
I know you had it, and I can't recall the numbers, but I'll throw out and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. That's at 2.5%, so we would use $1.2 million for fund balance, correct? If that number was 2, where is that number? I think the number was closer to $3 million.
Yeah. So
and that was the max, right?
At $2 million, it was closer to $3 million. Then we found find some other savings.
So it would be.
It would be. So if you would add, so you have that 1,218,991, you would add 856,186 to get back to 2%.
So another 800,000. Right. So you're at 2 million.
That's right.
I mean.
Why don't we jump to 2.4?
Yeah. So I'm not sure how we got the 2.5. I mean, me personally, when I look at I would love to see a number that starts with a 1, even if it has a 9 next to it. But as we just talked about, Joe had mentioned that every year we have, we're a conservative budget, so we usually have money coming back. I'm almost willing to take that $800,000 risk that says that we're going to be with a conservative budget, that we're gonna have that 800,000. So me personally, I would like to see that number at 2 as opposed to 2.5. Especially if we're not gonna be able to do anything, and which we don't know yet, with the rebate program that you had talked about.
So if you went to 2 and we were able to implement the program at 75%, just for, highest numbers, or you might be able to go higher than that, I don't know. It'd be about 2.2.
So you're talking a $1 million increase from this proposal.
Yeah.
Which is $1 million risk, basically.
I mean, you don't decide how much to increase something based on the number that you like. You have to balance your budget, you have to look at the inflation, you have to see at the expenses, you have to see how you can help people that are like fixed income, and then you decide what the final number is going to be. We all like to not increase any tax, but I mean, we don't decide based on a number that sounds good to me. I mean, we have to take everything
Where
into
did
account.
2.5 come from? It sounds like it's just a number we picked up.
I think it has to do, and I don't think it's here, it has to do with the 5-year projection and how the surplus keeps falling down more and more. But I don't think you can see that if you don't see the 5-year projection.
I mean, that's interpolation. I mean, our last meeting, we looked at the 2% and the 3%, and we could interpolate where 2.5% would be. So, I mean, is that all it was? Was just sort of an arbitrary number that we liked between 2 and 3, or?
May I?
Yeah.
Yeah, Yoda and I asked for 2.5% because we had 2%. We had 3%, so we asked for 2.5 for another point of comparison. So I spent some time last night looking at the numbers, and yes, I agree that 2% this year looks like a reasonable thing to do. But if you look out 2 years, we have a problem. If we went 2%, according to Tony's numbers from the tables, in 2 years, if we went 2% per year, we would have a deficit of 3.6 million, and our fund balance would be down to 9.7 million. If you went 2.5% this year and 2 years in a row, in 2026, our deficit would be about $1 million, 989,000, according to Tony's numbers, and a $15 million fund balance, which starts to look almost acceptable. And then the 3% number that we looked at before, in 2 years, we would have a 1.6 million surplus and a 19.9 million fund balance. All I'm suggesting is that while 2% this year would be acceptable, all of a sudden, in another year and another year after that, we're starting to dig ourselves into a hole. And that's, if we could look again at the numbers for 3% and 2% and see what it looks like going out. But, we've talked a lot about the need to look 5 years out. Well, if you look 5 years out at 2% a year, we've got a problem.
When you were looking when you did that calculation, which is wonderful.
I didn't do any calculating. I did no calculating. It's all Tony's numbers. Yes, put them in the table.
Right, which is very helpful. Does that fact, I suppose the question is to you, Tony, did those numbers factor in conservative budgeting? Or did they not?
It did. It would factor in conservative budgeting. So,
because conservative budgeting in the past has been conducted, and for many years, many longtime board members recall a surplus, and often a surplus in excess of what we anticipated. To some degree.
To some degree. We budget based on conservative budgeting. Obviously, I have a projection model that I can say that the 2024 projections are based on conservative budgeting. A lot of the parameters for the future years is thrown in.
And it's harder
To
farther out.
further out you go, the harder it is to call that conservative budgeting. But I would say that if we do conservative budgeting every year, as long as we budget conservatively with a reasonable use of fund balance or no use of fund balance, then I would expect us to be in good shape as long as things continue the way, as long as our conservative fund balance, is continues to work. I mean, I could, again, we talk about moving parts. There's so many, there could be a big change to the governor's budget, and instead of getting more basic education funding, we get less.
Right. So, Mr. Tate, are you suggesting that you want a tax increase?
Yes, I think a tax increase is unavoidable. I think the question is how great that tax increase should be.
Right.
Yeah, and that's why I agree completely. That's why I didn't bother looking out more than 2 years, because the degree of accuracy of those predictions is going to go down, as Tony just said. But it just if you looked at the numbers that were presented previously, you see that we start to develop a problem 2 years out.
Mr. O'Donnell wants to talk to, just so he's in line, that's all.
Is that?
Joe wants to talk, just so he's in line, that's all.
I don't want to steal.
Do you want to go?
Yeah, no joking. I've already spoken.
Mr. Hidalgo? Joe, are you there?
Sure, thank you so much. I really appreciate this conversation tonight. I think, and especially Anthony, your insights after we talked, after I spoke, was very good. So when we talk about these tax increases and 5-year projections, which we've been doing now for about 4 or 5 years, we can look at it and say 2% flat, or increasing maybe 3% 1 year, and that's a projection. So what I think is let's just say we stick to 2, because I think we've been saying slow and steady tax increases is what's needed to manage you can't have a zero tax year, anymore, in this environment. But let's just say we do 2%, and as Mr. Hickey said, maybe we erred on the wrong side. There's always next year. We're not stuck with this 5-year projection. So there may be a year where if we get it wrong, we will have to increase taxes more than we would like, 3, 3.5, whatever. But that's after we've justified it by the performance of the budget. Not to say hypothetically, maybe we're not going to be good, so let's be proactive and do something. And it will make things easier. Obviously, I think Anthony said, if it was me as a business manager, the easiest thing I need, if I was a business manager, is give me Act 1 index every year. I'll give you gold-plated water fountain. Look, we're going to be good. So all I'm saying is, I know we need a 12% tax increase, and we're pretty uncomfortable going high because we're trying to be, trying to keep the purse strings tight. So part of that is controlling the tax increases. So just because if we go to 2 or less than 2 or more than 2, if it doesn't work out, we always have next year. We're not tied to a 5-year projection. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Any other?
I just want to add, I'm disappointed. I left here the other night with 2%, $3 million. Now we're going to raise taxes during inflation. I haven't seen any cuts. I haven't seen anything that I think we're going to get to. For me, I thought, sort of band-aiding this year, closing the gap with a little extra fund balance, keeping the tax rate low for everyone, and then letting this administrative team go into work, looking at curriculum, looking at classes that are underattended. What is that break even for a class that should we take off the radar that we're not using? and looking at other ways to be efficient within our budget. You can you might as well ask for the full Act 1 index at this point, and see if you can get 5 minutes on that, because to Joe's point, that's arguably the right way of doing it. That's not for me, so I won't be voting for this.
You won't be voting for it.
I was 2.5. I didn't ask for it, I don't know where it came from, I thought we left here last week, 2.0. I hear what Mr. Tate has to say, I'm not in full disagreement, but this $1.2 million, we did that last year. We can do $3 million.
So the budget keeps changing. So what we saw last time is not exactly the same numbers as we saw now. So
let me know when the numbers are going to be where I can vote on it then. If this is the numbers, it's a no.
Well, we suggested looking at 2.5% as a point of comparison. It's not up to us to recommend as committee chairs
But it is now, it's a slide.
presented for discussion.
Okay?
And only
I just
taking-
discussed.
All right.
I'm at 2%. I mean, we're reducing building subs, which I think is going to come back and be a big bite in our rear ends. The first email I get, the kids are sitting in a cafeteria, I'm going to lose my mind. How many people are off the mark? We're going to be paying through a roof the mark for subs in our buildings.
So you cannot, on the one hand, have all these things, and on the other hand, want not to increase the tax rate to pay for them. I mean, you get what you pay in life, right? So, and I think what I've seen so far from the administration is they've tried so hard to find efficiencies, and originally they wanted to do more things, and even, I don't want to give numbers out, publicly, like for safety and security, they came back with a minimum. And still, we argue that, we don't want to pay for it. We want to dig into our surpluses and dig more and more year after year. So,
No, I don't think you're right. I don't think we've dug into our surpluses.
we
have not.
According to this.
No, we have not.
I think to your point, that there's lots of factors that you have to consider. You can't just look at one side. There's lots of factors, and a budget is a living, breathing, moving thing. It's a plan, just as a 5-year budget or projection is a living, breathing, moving thing. We need to adapt to it. This is why we asked for curriculum. This is why we've asked for things. And I think we do have a wonderful administration at this point that has done tremendous things this year. As I said before, we're in a rock and a hard place. We're in a difficult spot. There's lots of immovable objects in our budget, and if we're not careful, my concern is the day will come where we have to increase taxes by a certain amount to stay equal. And then sooner or later, that's not too far between us needing maybe an Act 1 increase just to stay there. I mean, I don't know of a job in the private sector where you can go to your boss and say, I need more money, but I'm not going to do anything different in my job. I'm going to keep doing it exactly the way it was. And that doesn't exist. We have that luxury, but the difference is our boss are the taxpayers. So this is there's a lot of things to consider. And yeah, I interpolated between the 2 and the 3 last time, kind of looking at some of this, and we kind of did some of the math too when we're sitting here. We had a bunch of different numbers last time. If the numbers changed, it's helpful. But I agree with Mr. Sound. At some point, you're going to need to have some fixed numbers to look at.
I would say other than the millage rate for real estate taxes, that the rest of the numbers are
Pretty close.
They're solid numbers. They're in the system. They're what we would barring some, something else broke our way that we're working on, that these will be the last.
But these are different, so this is different than what we saw last time, right?
It's different in, yeah, so about $700,000 different.
Right, but your expenses are still the same. From Mrs. Papa's point, right? The only thing that
No,
will change on this.
No, the expenses are not the same. We,
You have the revenue.
what?
And the revenues.
Revenue is not the same. The revenue is
So
the one that increased,
there is a
but we had expenses move from last time because we didn't factor in there was, some of those administrative changes. We said it wasn't a one-to-one switch, so there was some additional expenses that were added in that. But from where we sat, at the end of this, I mean, those are the major changes. I also didn't have, remember, I did not have $1 million. So when we looked at those numbers last week, I did not have $1 million for the transfer in those numbers, and I did not have the additional salaries.
Right.
And then we found that the 700,000. Not found, but we were able to.
Mr. Tate?
Yeah, remind me, please, where did we start with expenditures and how much did we eliminate from the expenditures side from the first time we looked at the budget? Because I think that was pretty significant. And that was the product of a lot of hard work by the administration to.
Expenditures started at $273 million, and what are we down to? 267,955, because that includes the use of fund balance. So really, if you really consider that expenditures are at 267,655 or 620 rather than 955, because we're using some of that. One of the cuts is that we're using, not cuts, but one of the efficiencies that we found is we're using fund balance for $300,000 of expenditure.
Right. So it was 270.
So it was about $6,450,000.
$6,450,000 was reduced from the expenditures line from the first time we looked at the budget until now.
Yes.
$6,450,000 was reduced on the expenditure side from the first budget that the administration presented until now. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, but it was also the wish list of everything.
You can call it wish list. I think that's a pejorative term that's really not fair. I mean, I don't think the administration comes forward with I wish we could have these things list. I think it was a legitimate budget, and they did a lot of hard work to reduce it by $6,450,000. I just want to remind people, that's all. There's a lot of discussion about efficiencies and finding ways to reduce expenditures. Well, the administration reduced expenditures by $6,450,000.
Yeah, but it is a lot of money, and it is a lot of hard work.
It is a lot.
I don't believe anybody's diminishing that, but that is to make a more relative metaphor. That's if I'm going to the store and I want to spend $500 on a television set, and I end up finding another brand that's on sale for $250. I didn't cut $250 from my expenses. I still put $250 on my credit card that I need to pay for, that I'm looking for my revenue. That's not a cut necessarily. That's not finding an efficiency. That's not spending as much as was originally planned.
Doesn't $6.5 million, that includes a cut of positions that the administration would like to have, but they cannot afford, correct?
Right. I'd like to have the nice TV, but I didn't work. Cuts never here at work.
You don't have payroll.
Well, I didn't think the discussion was about it would be nice to have another ELD position. I felt like the administration was saying, we recommend.
Right.
And after further discussion, that was removed, just as one example. So, I mean, we could argue about it all night, but I just don't want us to lose cite the fact that from the beginning of this conversation about the budget until now, the administration has removed $6.5 million from the expenditure side. That's all.
Would you want that back?
No, I'm not suggesting it come back. That would be impossible at this rate. That would be absolutely impossible. Plus, I think from the point of view of trusting the administration, I think that those reductions in expenditures were something that they feel that they can live with. So I think we're at a good place on the expenditure side right now, and I don't want to diminish their efforts to reduce expenditures.
Mr. Hickey?
Yeah, first of all, I do appreciate the work the administration did do to reduce that $6 million. But that was done basically over the last 2 months. Much to Mr. Salma's point, and you've already mentioned, Mr. Rapp, that, starting in July, we're going to start looking at other ways that maybe we can trim the fat, as it were. Not looking to trim the meat, trim the fat, and who knows where that number is going to be. So I appreciate it. One thing that you kind of blew over, but I really want to commend you for what you said. Nobody even appreciated when you said about transferring that $1 million from the health fund, and you said, you know what, I'm not going to do it. I have a problem with that. I just want to point out, you know what, this is I want the honest guy working for us and the guy with some morals and convictions, and I really appreciate that statement that you made. It was just went by unnoticed.
It was not.
Well, I mean, like I said, I want to publicly point out that this is the kind of people that, that I want, people that have some morals and values, and, hey, you felt that wasn't a good thing to do, and, me personally, and I'm sure everybody else, appreciate it. But, that being said, like I said, I don't know where the 2.5 came from. I don't know what changed since last week other than to the good, so I'm not sure why we're looking at raising the number as opposed to. Well, let me ask you a question, I guess. Would it be foolish, in your humble opinion, if we were at 2%?
Or does it work?
Or does it, right?
Or what?
Does it work?
Does it work?
Well, I gave you my parameters of where I was willing to stand, and 2% is within those parameters. I felt before I found extra savings that 2% was as low as I wanted to go. That would have, based on the numbers as they were last week, would have been around close to a $3 million use of fund balance. Now with some of the other things that we found with Cheryl's work, it would be about
Closer to 2.
Closer to,
Is it possible to see this again? Because remember you did these models with you had 2%, you had 3%, and we had even less than that. And you projected like the 5 years and the effect of, because now these are different numbers. This is not what we saw last time.
right, and that was based on, like I said, where we were with the budget last week. I can put it would require a decent amount of work, because now I'd have to go in and change all the, which I'm not saying I don't want to do the work, that's not important.
No, just the top line, you don't have to go through all the little.
Right, no, but what I'm saying is that there's a lot of factors that go into making that 2024 projection match our budget, because I have to go based on what's in 2023, and then I have to play with percentages to get it. But that's not your problem. That's my problem. It's my job. So I can do that. But one of the things that I tried to caution against last week is especially the further out that you went with it, that we weren't headed towards bankruptcy. We're not headed towards being bankrupt in 5 years. In that we do budget conservatively, so those uses of fund balance hopefully never happen at the level that the projections are telling us. So, I mean, I can come back with that, but if you want it for where to see where the fund balance is, I don't think that's showing unresolved, you have no power to act on that. I have none of us have any power to act on things. That's showing where it would be, and the budget gets less conservative as you go up each year. So I can do that again, but your results are, I would say the expense side is probably the more accurate side on the projections that I gave you. It's the revenue side that changed.
I mean, the models that you showed us last time, the 2% increase for me, according to that model, made me very uncomfortable. And that's why I said it's not fiscally responsible to present a 5-year budget like that. If things have changed, I'll be happy to reconsider, but I cannot just take it without actually seeing the numbers.
I mean, I can put something together if that's what you want with the 2% increase and project it going out from there. But I don't know, yeah, I can do this. We talked about it earlier. I couldn't do it before this meeting because of the amount of time it would have taken. But it's not the graphs and putting it in. I have to look at all these accounts and figure out what percentage I need to add in. But the expense side is fine. It's more the revenue side that I have to look at that on. So.
I have a question. Is it premature for us tonight to just, hear from each other what we're willing to do in terms of an increase? Are we willing to do an increase? Is that premature to ask tonight?
Well, I will just, if you don't mind, I'm sorry. Next week, you just need something stamped. The final budget's not until June 30th.
Right.
So there's still time to work.
So just so make sure that you know what the process is we will ask you to approve a budget. We will submit that budget online, PDE, as our proposed budget, our proposed final budget. Then that budget will be on display or be available to be viewed by the public for 30 days, and then once the 30 days are up, then we can make whatever changes, whatever, based on whatever increase, non-increase you would like to do for taxes. I also want to say that before it goes public, you will receive on board docs a copy of the budget book in a PDF, which is all the line items in the budget in as much detail as we can give you on those line items, so you can review and see what the budget looks like at that level. And but we would ask that if you could approve that next week so that we can get it advertised. Otherwise, we're running up against the deadline.
I'm sorry. Joe, you want to mute?
I'm so sorry. My apologies.
No, I was just curious in listening to everyone's discussion here. And as I said, perhaps it's premature. I'm just curious to get a sense of where each of us is in terms of, what is our appetite for a tax increase? What numbers are we thinking of? And as I said, perhaps that question is premature, but we've certainly looked at enough numbers and have met numerous times about budget. I guess I just wanted to get kind of a baseline with each of us.
Do you want to start?
I had said last week, what we sat through last week and the recommendation, and I was supportive of that. I recognize none of us want to increase taxes. We take it very seriously. It's a struggle for all of us. I know that. However, the reality is the Act 1 index is 4.1. So a 2% increase, to me, it's modest, it's necessary. I would be supportive of it.
Of 2%.
Yeah. If we can do better, great. If we need to go higher, let's discuss. But I'm not putting my foot down and saying absolutely no increase.
No, I think it's very good. The night of last year, if you remember, we worked the room a little bit.
Exactly.
To try to get more reasonable,
Yeah.
more comfortable. I have no faith in last year's budget. And I had that last year. I voted against it. I just struggled with it. We're 3 weeks away from voting on the new budget. And they were still finding rabbits in hats.
Yeah.
I really want to be as conservative as we can, whatever that means for everyone's definition, to get through this year, because the work's already beginning. Two things I took away last week. We will be talking about the budget in September. The speech tonight was beautiful, by the way, and I compliment you for laying that out. Shouldn't get lost in interpretation anywhere. But I think, the work that the administration is going to do is going to pay dividends in conjunction with the constant conversation of budgets. So I just really, and I said this to Yoda last week, I hate this word, but I want to Band-Aid this year as conservative as we can for our tax base and let the administration go to work. And we got to come back to the table next year with a higher tax rate, but I can put my head on the pillow and know that the work's done. That's a conversation then. For now, we are sitting on a decent amount of money. We routinely come back here every year with some level of fund balance. I don't know where it was last year. There was time, Mr. Tate, you've been on the board where you were told spend the fund balance. But you've already raised taxes. So, Dr. Thorwer and I talked about this, and I don't want to put words in his mouth. He says he was fine with $3 million because he knows he's going to get it back, because that's the way we conservatively budget. I just want to be careful this year. There's a lot of negative things in the world going on, and I see people hurting. And that concerns me on all levels. I also want to revisit EITs and eliminating occupational taxes. And that's the work of this board and talking to our community members and folks. That's the right way to add some revenues. I talked to Dr. Sanko about naming rights and finding other streams to get into Council Rock to bring more money in. Because we're only at a couple areas we can bring it in. So for me, I want to do the least amount in both areas. Tax increase, fund balance, that gets us over the hump and let their work begin. So I don't mean to be picky, but, a 0.5 may not be a lot for some. There's a lot of people out there that could be a lot. I don't know. I just want to be safe.
Yeah, I mean, that slide that we looked at today for an idea of the way to repay seniors, there's people out there that have a fixed income of under $50,000. And with inflation that we're seeing, that hits hard. So it is. There's a lot to maneuver around, and a lot to consider. And I share your disappointment. I was hoping last year would be an interesting waterline where we could sort of figure out where we needed to be, and it wasn't. But I'm a lot happier with this now. I wish that we had you around for more time, Mr. Rapp, because, and Dr. Sanko, I think you've done a wonderful job of setting a team and setting an example and working through all of this. That's not to be overlooked. And I'm looking forward to next year. I think one of the mistakes that we might have made last year is we settled on a budget, we weren't overly confident with it, and then we kind of didn't do anything with it. So I love a lot of the things that you've mentioned in the past couple of weeks about where we can see this and checking our burn rate, which is a term that I used, and checking and having this move forward to see how we're doing. That's wonderful. So I'm looking forward to next year. And but we do have to get through this year first.
Since you gentlemen brought up last year, what I was most concerned about going into this budget process is that we would have a repeat of last year, where I thought we had a figure in mind, and then at the board meeting, the final board meeting to pass the final budget, we ended up with a figure that I felt was lower than was fiscally responsible. We ended up at 1.25% last year, which I don't think was wise. This year would be satisfied with 2%. What I'm concerned about is that we might at the last minute go below it, which I think would be irresponsible. So I'll support 2%. I certainly hope that we stick to it. And I too am confident that with Mr. Rapp and Dr. Sanko and the others in our administration, that the budget that we're gonna have next year is gonna be even more buttoned up, and we could see some very good results from this budget year. So I think it's reasonable to go forward with 2%. I don't want to go below that. Oh, and by the way, I did want to say, I think Joe's idea of exploring a rebate program was brilliant. It's obviously a low-cost thing for the district to adopt if we can. So Joe, congratulations. I think that was a smart move.
Thank you. Bob, you want to say something? Or you already-
I mean, I already did. I guess the only thing I'll add to it, like you said, like everybody else said, I look forward to the coming year. I don't know what it's going to be. You know, as I mentioned before, maybe trimming fat. Maybe there is no fat to trim. But until we explore it, we're not going to know that answer. And I really appreciate the team of Mr. Rappin and Dr. Sanko working together and seeing what's happening. And like you said, you know, I can live with 2%, if need be, unless something magical happened that would bring that number down. But at this point, I don't think we're seeing, you know, that big of a drastic drop. And hopefully some of these initiatives that have been discussed by Mr. Solomon and Mr. Hidalgo, you know, maybe they can see some fruition to help those seniors the most who need it. But, you know, a good job by everybody. I was appreciative of the discussion.
So, I have a degree in finance. So, and a lot of this discussion is about, you know, trying to find some kind of common, and maybe when we vote, you know, the majority will win. But for me, the numbers are the numbers. And when you have a budget, you are trying not to do wishful thinking, but to actually find ways to balance the budget. Wishful thinking one, we always budget conservatively, so things will take care by themselves in the future. Another wishful thinking is, you know what, we can find even more efficiencies, possibly, but until that happens, it's a number that would be nice to have, but it's not on the table. So for me, I cannot give you a number that I'm comfortable until I see the 5-year projection with the latest numbers, and I feel okay to say that I believe this district will be in good financial position over the next 5 years. So I don't want to make up a number just that it's going to sound good. I just want a number that makes sense financially. And so far, I'm not convinced of any number that makes sense. I mean, the inflation is 4%, approximately 4.1%. And we're talking about an increase that is way lower than the inflation. So we know we have efficiencies. We know that there's something. We don't know if it's going to be a recession coming. People are talking about that. So the economic outlook is unknown at this point. And I cannot base my recommendation on wishful thinking. It has to be, the numbers have to make sense. And right now, I am not convinced that I know the number will make sense.
Mr. Nomos is on the phone, let's talk.
Mr. Nomos?
Yeah, thank you. So I agree with everyone and our comments on the board and commending the board, the administration's hard work in coming down with these numbers and reeling some of these numbers in and getting down to where we are. I still need to do some learning in being only on board here for a couple of months and some of where these dollars are going, right? But from the sound of it, I'm comfortable with with that 2% range if those numbers come in like we say they're going to. So again, I concur with everyone's acknowledgement of the administration's hard work in getting these numbers together. The scrutiny by Dr. Sanko and Mr. Rapp with pulling things together and being honest about it and laying it on the table. So from my view, I think a lot of the consensus here looks like we're about 2%, and I'm kind of comfortable with that. So again, I apologize for not being there with a late flight kid, just getting up 95 right now. So with all the traffic in the city. So again, I apologize for not being there.
All right, thank you. So we move on to facilities. Are you guys ready to move on?
What do you need from us from the standpoint, I mean, do you need for next week? Because it's, we need to vote on this.
It seems to me that I won't say majority, but that most board members, and I'm just saying what I see, most board members would like 2%. So what I would do is, I will put together the projections for 2% and send them out to the board. I will also, I would like to then change the budget so that tax increase is 2%, and then present you with a budget next week at the meeting of a 2% increase. And again, you're only voting on approving the final proposed budget. And we'll be able to submit that if you need to get it advertised and have it available. And, after, we can talk about, if we need to meet any time in between or wait for the next month's finance committee to discuss it. I'll just throw this out there, if there's still discussion going on at the board meeting in June to approve the budget, we'll probably have to have another meeting because I will not be able to be at that meeting. I have a vacation that I was planned before I took this job. So I won't be in town, so I will just let you know about that. If you're still discussing it and you need me, I won't be able to be at that meeting.
You want to tell your wife I have to approve that?
You just did. No, I said something to you before you hired me.
I don't either.
Okay.
Any other comments before we proceed?
We have a recess.
Actually, does anybody need a break before I start?
No.
It's your turn, Justin.
Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but, all right.
Oh, I'm sorry, there was
Go ahead.
next month is final approval of budget. We're still waiting on the NBIC budget. If that changed, so we're not gonna get that much change in numbers. So, thank you.
Where we at with that?
Never mind.
We're meeting regularly with the DAs and the superintendents with MBIT and all the supporting and schools that go to it.
That's due to the 30th as well?
I believe so.
They're still working on, just basically double checking to make sure that everything that what was presented is in order. I mean, I don't think it's going to be an extravagant change, but it's not clean.
Okay, fair enough.
They do get some extra help up there to expedite things.
The facilities agenda will have 5 maintenance bids for next year. We'll also review Richboro School construction phase commissioning service, construction testing and special inspections, Soul Finestone construction update, as well as furniture for the phases for the summer, Johnson Controls Green kiosk, and use of facilities license agreements. First are the maintenance bids. For the wood gym and other floor maintenance service bid, we received 2 bids on April 27th. This scope of work includes screening the floor, fixing any lines, recoding the gym and auditorium floors at 11 locations. The work will be completed during the summer and is coordinated with summer activities. As you can see, hard quartz flooring and contracting was roughly $4,458 cheaper, so we're going to recommend proceeding with a contract with hard quartz flooring and contracting.
Are any of these, a lot of our gymnasiums have wood floors, and this
Yes.
references it.
Yes,
So hard quartz flooring is the name of the company.
yes,
It's not the name of the product that's being installed.
correct.
Wonderful. Don't we have, which one is it? one of the elementary schools, is it Hillcrest, that doesn't have a wood floor?
So there's a couple that doesn't have a wood floor. Hillcrest, Richboro Elementary, just the two that I know off the top of my head. So yes, we don't do anything to those floors. Those floors are steady.
Correct.
So I think it's, Churchville has two locations, so it's the gym and the auditorium stage that we refinish, and then forgetting what the second school is that have two spots there. It's another elementary school that has two spots that we recoat every year. Right, we had two spots, two schools that were scheduled to be refinished, but since I wasn't in this position and Pauline was kind of leaving and Angela was coming in, we're going to push those two to next year to do those two next year, just so we can coordinate better with our user groups. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Next is waste removal and recycling service bid. We received 4 bids on the 26th. This includes the trash and recycling pickup at 19 district locations for the next 3 years. If you see up there, list year 1, 2, and 3. The low bid, who actually still has our contract now, is Waste Management for a 3-year total of $578,232.06. Again, they are low bid. Next bid is Leck and Son, but their Waste Management is significantly low.
Why do we stop at 3 years? Is that just a rule of thumb?
It's hard for them to predict anything longer. 3 years seems to be the best feel for them. So that's why. Fair enough?
The percentage from year to year on that is growing up. Is that about 5-6% each year to year?
Didn't figure out what the actual percentage increase is.
I think it's 6, isn't it? Yeah.
Put me on the spot, I don't have a calculator in hand, but probably.
I think it's 6% for the lowest one. I didn't do, I'm not looking at all, just looking at the recommended.
It's about 6%.
Inflation at 4%, and we just got off the discussion of rising costs and contracts with immovable objects, a 6% year-over-year contract, even for the lowest one, might be excessive.
It's a little more than 6, closer to 7.
Is it closer to 7?
It's actually a little north of 7.
Right. Is that Siri?
I have no idea what that is.
Anthony's wife just told him she canceled the vacation.
My wife told me she wants a divorce.
It's closer to 7.5.
Wow.
7.5.
So,
But from year 1 to year 2, it's
And year 2 to year 3.
I'm seeing 8%.
Okay.
there you go.
That's the, your money back.
Yeah. Well, that's double.
Definitely more than 2%.
Right.
8% each year.
What do they say about that? Does Waste Management have a comment?
It's competitively bid.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, when it's competitively bid, it's hard to negotiate.
Yeah, not to pick on Waste Management, they are the lowest bidder from the
Significantly
5,
lower.
significantly lower. But this is kind of the territory that's concerning. I mean, we're signing an agreement with tremendous year-to-year over expense increases, which forces a board to have deliberations and considerations about tax increases to make sure that we get, everything lines up. So, you know, I mean, this gets right through. It's a shame that.
Tony, these factored in, they're factored in budget, correct? They will be moving forward.
We increased the, at least my budget, I increased this by about 3%, so I'm gonna have to find other line items to make up for it.
Okay. What do we pay right now, or what do we just pay for the past 3 years of waste removal and recycling services?
I don't know off the top of my head, but
That's
I
all
can
right. You
find
don't-
out.
yeah. Just for conversation.
I'll get back to you on that.
All right.
Good? Okay. Propane supply, we received 2 bids on the 25th from Sharp and Wilson Oil. I did do an evaluation with the Mount Bellevue, Texas propane spot price. So basically you take the daily spot price. If you don't use the fixed price, you take the daily spot price and add in the differential. The differential is basically transportation delivery. So if you look at the box down here, it gives you the average spot price for this past winter. The only time that it would not have been beneficial to use the float price would have been week 4 in January. Everyone else would have been lower per gallon than the fixed price per gallon. So I am recommending that we utilize the floating price. I will say that last year we did do a fixed price, and based on that analysis, we overpaid. Now, it is a slight gamble but propane is usually not as volatile as other fuels. So I would, say that again?
Figuratively speaking.
Figuratively speaking. Yes, no pun intended there. So I would recommend that we do move forward with the floating price to try to save a couple dollars. Now it wouldn't be a significant savings because we only have 2 locations for propane. It's Sulphine-Stone and Twining Ford. So, but we would project to have some savings. Next is number 2, fuel oil and unleaded gas. For Council Rock School District's bid, we only received 1 bid from Riggins. We did look at the Bucks County IU bid just for a comparison to see if we wanted to team up with them. So we did not, for number 2 fuel oil, we did not receive a firm fixed price. I think everybody understands why. So the floating price for number 2 fuel oil for Riggins is 24 cents. So again, you would take your current market price plus 24 cents, and that's the price you would pay. Bucks County IU received a floating price for the differential would be $44.93 a gallon. So going with Riggins would be a significant savings per gallon using their floating price. The next one is the unleaded gas. Again, Riggins did not give us a price. Again, you all can figure out why. Bucks County IU received a firm price of $3.1784. Now, if you look at the average, and I should put the chart up, but if you look at the average over the course of this winter as well, it would have come out cheaper to do the differential cost per gallon. So on April, I don't know the date here, but in April, they had a current market price of $2, and I don't know how to read this, but 8027 cents. So if you would take that plus the 8027, 127, plus the differential cost, which was 25 cents, it would come out to be roughly 305 a gallon, which is lower than the firm fixed price. So again, I am recommending that we go with the differential price. Now, this is slightly more risky than the propane. You know, if heaven forbid a war breaks out in the Middle East, and I know the entire country is going to be in trouble. But I would recommend that we would go with the differential price for both fuel oil, number 2 fuel oil, and unleaded gasoline. The unleaded gasoline we use for maintenance vehicles and transportation transportation vans. So we don't use a ton of it, but we use enough. Any questions? Okay. Next one is air filters. Now, when you look at this, so we received 2 full bids and 1 partial bid. If you look at Filter Buy, the $17,000 is only a partial bid. They only bid a select number of filters. So I would recommend really looking at Florence Filter and Brook Air. Brook Air is significantly cheaper than Florence Filter, and I would recommend that we go with Brook Air. I would recommend that we go with 1 vendor just because of the sheer volume of filters that we receive throughout the district. We get 4 deliveries, average 4 deliveries per school throughout the school year. And if you look at the list, there's over 120 different types of filters that we get over the course of all the buildings.
So I'm assuming that these 3 companies are offering or bidding upon comparable filter quality.
We give them our spec, and they have to meet our spec. So some of them are like MERV 8 filters. So we give them the size, because obviously the size doesn't change, and then we say that this one has to be MERV 8, this one has to be pleated, mini pleated, whatever it is, and they have to meet that specific requirements.
Is that why the partial bid only wanted to bid on some, because they don't have?
Yeah, they don't either have the capacity, they don't have the materials to do it, they don't have the machinery to create those ones, so they've only bid on the ones that they could provide.
Okay.
If we move on to the next, in answer to the question about the increase in waste management into next year is about $13,000 over what we paid this year. So I'll have to look at the budget to see what I mean, as far as the overall budget is concerned, it's not really going to be that big of a factor.
And I think I increased my projection by, I think, 5%, so that was based on another district that did this exact same thing.
Sorry to know.
No, it's okay.
Hey, Jess. So I look forward to the air filters every year.
I don't know why, but.
It just sticks in my head every year. Can't we do multiple year bids on this stuff?
It's hard. Filters we could. Filters we could.
I mean, every year, Doug would be like, here we go, filter. We go through a lot of filters. I get it.
So-
Is it big? I mean, yeah.
So Donna and I have had this conversation.
Most of them, I know I'm crazy, but geez, I'm not that.
Give me a chance to figure this out, because
Okay.
it takes a ton of work between me, Donna, and Christine to analyze this and put together the posting on the website. It literally takes days of our time
And that's
to
concerning,
manually
because if
put it in.
not much changes year to year.
No. The only thing that changes, and we could leave it off, is like when we do renovation. So like there's our Go Crash changed this year. So we could put in factors. Yeah, absolutely.
But you know what you're getting and what you're going to need ahead of time.
Yeah, so for Rich Row, I don't know exactly what we're going to need, because all the equipment's not selected, and submittals are just coming in right now. But what I could do is just do a supplementary bid just for that school.
I don't know, I'd like several years worth of contracts and, kind of just rolling with it. But every year it just sticks in my head, I hear about these air filters and MERVs. I think it's great, but why are we doing this every year?
We're on the same page here,
Okay,
because I'll be honest with you, this was a pain in the butt to do.
Okay. Well,
And
then,
it's a lot of work for my building mechanics, because they have to go through and say, all right, I need these filters, last year we might have ordered too many of filter X, Y, Z, so now I gotta calculate how many I need. It's a ton of work across my entire unit, so I agree.
all right, great. Then make sure life fees are big more life fees. I'll look forward to the next year, so. If I'm here, can't wait.
We'll put a nice big ad for you.
And if I'm here, I'm coming, so.
Okay, next is Richboro School Construction Phase, and I can't talk now. Richboro Elementary School Construction Phase Commissioning Services. So Stonehouse Group, they originally had a proposal in June 2020 when we were going to do Hillcrest and Richboro together. It was roughly 65,000 square feet and a 12-month schedule. So now that we're going to do the addition, which adds additional square footage, and our construction duration has changed, they need to increase their proposal by $14,700. Just to remind everybody that this enhanced commissioning is required for LEED. So they'll be doing building envelope commissioning, which is air and moisture, HVAC commissioning, and then also electrical and solar, along with some other more minor things. So we'd recommend to amend their current agreement for an additional $14,700. So their total value for Richboro would be $63,700. And this would be funded through with the bond borrow. Next is Richboro Elementary School Construction Testing and Special Inspections. This agreement was approved in March. The reason why I have to come back to you is because I need to make an amendment. There's an indemnification clause, and they have a sister company that they were asking us to move over to for insurance purposes. So the only thing that's going to change is that the name of the company is going to go from Geotechnical Associates to GTA USA LLC.
Is that what I was asked about last week and a half?
Yes, yes.
Just for the board's edification, if I could, and I think I can talk about it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this has already been signed off on. They decided they want to change companies. It's a minor thing, but the solicitor has an issue that if I was just to sign off on it, there's some sunshine law possibility issues. To make it clean, we're just going to bring it back. Nothing is changing except the name of the company. And we'll just,
And their address.
It was enough that Aaron said, let's just put it back and re-sign it. So that's what all this is. If you needed additional clarification.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next is Little Finestone Elementary School construction update. So Phase 2A, Phase 3, and Phase 4 will be completed in end of August. So when students come back, end of August, beginning September. We'll have the new student entrance, the cafeteria, kitchen. Phase 3 is 9 classrooms. Phase 4 are the admin offices, 7 additional classrooms, and the teacher's lounge. I do want to bring up that we do have some unforeseen conditions happening currently. We have some unforeseen work in the hallway at the main entrance. The as-built drawings showed, and the as-built drawings were from when the building was built. It shows beam and metal deck construction. When we opened up the ceiling, we actually found that it was 2x4s on end with plywood on top. So luckily it was double layer drywall, so the fire rating was there. However, when we put the new HVAC equipment and the ductwork, there was concern that that would not support. So we did have the engineer come out, Hunt Engineering come out and do an evaluation. We expect the cost not to exceed $30,000. Now, we will not be asking to increase the budget. We'll be able to utilize
Contingencies.
Yeah, thank you, contingencies within their contract. But I felt that it was a significant amount of money to use against allowance money, that I wanted to let you guys know that this condition was there. We do expect the work to be completed during the summer of 2023, so this summer, so that this entrance can open and back up for students. When we get into it more and open up a full hallway and do a full evaluation, if anything changes, I'll make sure that I bring an update back to you guys.
Quick question, sorry, Jim.
I'll show the pictures here.
And fair play, if you're not sure, there used to be water issues in that main hallway. Does this account for any of that?
I don't know that.
Just to add to Jess, an as-built is a term used for the contractor's drawings to describe how they built it. So typically, the architect will release drawings and the contractor will install what was done. It happens from time to time that something at the site or whatever would cause them to build it differently for one reason or another, and they mark that up. That's called an as-built. So these are the as-builts from whenever this was built originally show the metal, but when they undid it, they actually found wood.
And
so that's interesting because that shouldn't have happened. They should have done an as-built to say they did wood.
It shouldn't happen. Does it happen? Yes. But, so typically during design, you would be popping your head above the ceiling to see what's going on, but this was a hard drywall ceiling, so without doing demo to see what's above there, you use your as-built to kind of assume what's there and move on. But at this point, when we opened this up, realized that, hey, we might have a problem. Now, it's not in any kind of imminent danger, like no one's going to get hurt, it's not going to collapse,
Right.
but we need to make sure that it's built correctly for it to last another 40, 50, 60 years.
How does that happen, or is the person who messed up or didn't follow directions, are they still, I guess it's from 50 years ago, so.
There's no recourse at this point.
And there's Coke
And
cans in your
honestly-
wall.
What's that?
And there's Coke cans in your walls.
Yeah.
And honestly, this change might have been approved by the designer at that point in time. I mean, I don't have records from that far back
Yeah.
to say that, oh yeah, there was an ASI issued and they blessed it and it was okay. Codes have changed, requirements have changed, live and dead loads have changed, so they've increased. So we want to make sure that we're good to go for the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years.
Oh, yeah, it's a good, I think it's a good catch. Fortunately, somebody stuck their head in the ceiling.
Yeah. Our general contractor, as soon as he pulled down some of the ceiling, said, whoa, 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 everybody stop, what's going on with this? And immediately alerted everybody, and we brought Hunt Engineering out to do an evaluation. But unfortunately, stuff like this does happen in construction, and, okay. So the next thing is Soul Feinstone Elementary School, phases 2A, 3, and 4 furniture. This furniture includes, again, the cafeteria, 16 classrooms, the admin suite, and teacher's lounge. We will be using Pemco again. They've done most of our furniture over the last 10 years, from what I gather. We'll be purchasing it per the PA CoStarz contract. I think you guys are all familiar with that. So I'm asking for a not to exceed of $170,000 for these 3 phases. We're still tweaking a couple of things here and there, so if it does come in over $170,000, I'll be coming back to you guys to approve additional funds. Okay. Next is the Johnson Controls Green Kiosk. This kiosk highlights green initiatives, sustainability, and energy efficiency. Currently, it includes Newtown Middle, Holland Middle, and Rolling Hills, and we need to add Hillcrest to it. This integrates into the existing Metasys building automated system. If we have Siemens building, it also picks up the Siemens side of it too. It is required to obtain LEED points, and so it monitors energy usage in the building at a real time, solar energy generation, and again, it ties into the Metasys, so it has real information. It's not assumed, or it's actual information from Johnson Controls. And it's pretty cool because it does give a QR code to view on your device. So if a teacher has their iPad, they can go scan the QR code and use it in science class or STEM class. It does include the year of monitoring is roughly $3,726 a location. So for the 4 locations, it's about $3,700. And the implementation for Hillcrest is $10,600. That's all their programming and graphics and kind of building the information into it. Next is use of school facilities license agreements. So we did go back to Carusa and Patriot. We did propose a 4% increase starting with year 1. Both Carusa and Patriot will keep their total number of hours that we have set now. And at the right, if you look, you can see year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, their hourly rate that they will be paying. We have in their language that their overage will be based on what we are charging other users. So currently we charge users $175 an hour. If we increase that to $400 an hour, they will be paying that rate over their total number of hours. And I know you guys asked for a copy of their 990. That should be uploaded to Board Docs tomorrow. They willingly, no issues, gave copies of them. They were gladly, willing to share the information.
I just heard back from.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt. One other thing, we did increase to 5 years from 3 years. Thank you.
Yeah, which pleased them, right?
Yeah, they were very happy to have the 5-year agreement.
Yeah, and I did ask, because I think it's been discussed before, what percentage of Crusoe players are Council Rock kids, and I just got back a text message that said 82%. So even if that's off a little bit, the majority of Crusoe players are Council Rock kids.
Yeah. And same thing with Patriot. I think a higher percentage of Patriot is Council Rock kids.
Yeah.
And once you look at the 990, you'll see there is a difference between the 2 organizations.
Yeah. Well,
But I think
reflected by their hours,
absolutely.
And in line with some of the other contracts that we're getting for expenses, this is still a very kind and considerate increase for our community in light of our kids doing it, so.
I think it's a win-win.
And both organizations have been an absolute pleasure to deal with. We do not have issues. We don't get reports of people acting like fools in our buildings. The kids have been very respectful for the facilities that they're using. So, they are both 2 great organizations to work with.
And the revenue's dedicated to fund for replacement improvement.
5 years is the way to go.
Yeah.
I'm glad they listened. Smart.
Yeah, in fact, Caruso would have taken a 15-year agreement if we offered.
Well, and remember, the folks weren't here, but Ed, you and I were a part of this process last year, and all these thoughts were, let's do a year, let's see how it's used, let's do everything out, and then come back next year. So, they are, I don't want to say the only game in town, but the volume that they needed. We went back and said, we don't want 3. I threw out there, let's talk 5. And just bump the increases a little bit. I think it's fair, because they do take good care of our other fields as well. So it's a win, like you said, it's a win-win for everybody, and more importantly, they're going to take care of our stuff, which we haven't seen in some places. So this is great. It's a win for everyone.
Yeah.
And I will say Carusa, they are projected to be over their total hours this year, so they're using the field. There's kids on the field just about every single night. And then also, I just lost my train of thought here.
And this will be on the agenda for next Thursday?
Yes.
And we keep, from an accounting standpoint, we keep all that in a separate, so we know when it's time to replace it.
It's on the financial statement as well.
Yep. Oh, the other thing is, when we have to bump them off the field for our uses, they never give us a hard time. So if soccer's having a playoff game and they need the field, and we have to bump them for the evening, there's never any arguments. We simply take those, say, 4 hours and apply it to another day, and there's no argument about it.
Thank you.
Okay. Last is upcoming items. We will be revisiting the use of facilities costs. We will be looking at the Newtown Elementary School data wiring bid. I'm hoping to get that out in the next couple days. And then the Richboro Elementary School Builders Risk Insurance, we just need to approve that. And then the Richboro Elementary School Development Agreements that the township will be issuing, which is the Pliget Agreement, Stormwater Management Agreement, and Land Development Agreements. And one item that's not up there is the Security Vestibule Project. Dawn has received a grant from the state for $255,000 to increase the security of the school vestibules. Part of that is working with Access Security for additional hardware to make it harder for us to get, harder for intruders to get in and out of the school. So I'll be bringing that. And then another part of that grant is security film, which is expected to bid over the summertime. We have some design work and documentation to do with that.
Just want to throw in one thing about the treasurer's report that you'll get next week. We did add the Richboro project to that report, so I don't want any of you to see it and get too excited because you didn't know it was coming, but it's going to be in there from now on. So.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one question, if you don't mind? 84 degrees tomorrow, we talked about Sulphine. We know Richboro Elementary doesn't have air conditioning as well. Can you, for some of the newer communities, give an overview of how the administration looks at those buildings, knowing it's going to be a little warmer in those buildings tomorrow?
Yeah, so we monitor through folks in Justice Department as well as the principals. We monitor classroom temperatures. When it gets to a certain degree, all of our buildings, even though they're not fully air conditioning, particularly Richboro Elementary, we have spaces that are cooled in the buildings, and we oftentimes will split recess 15 minutes outside, 15 minutes in the cooled area, or if that classroom is open that has air conditioning, we'll rotate students in and out of there. So the principals communicate. Jess has the folks in the maintenance team monitoring the temperatures a couple times throughout the day because, depending on the school and the location, depending where the sun is at that time of the day, certain rooms get warmer at certain times during the day, so we do monitor that.
We're also increasing outside air intake during the morning hours, since it is getting pretty cool at nighttime, to help cool down and pre-cool the buildings that don't have air conditioning.
That's smart.
All right. You have your comments on it?
I'm not really public.
Just hanging out.
So, if no other questions, we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.